Hello, Sharon here. Following on from the spreadsheet rules video that I did recently, I'm going to show you in this video how to do each of those steps in Google Sheets. So if you've not seen the rules video, then I'm including a link to it in the description below. But the following tips are also handy for anyone who's new to using Google Sheets. So let's crack on. The first tip is to keep any column headers frozen so they're always visible when you start scrolling down. As you can see here, the column headers have disappeared. You might also find it useful to freeze the first column here so that when you scroll across to the right, you can see what it means, what the data is actually showing. You can do this really quickly in Google Sheets, and all you need to do in this top left corner here, you can see two thick grey lines, and when you hover over them, the cursor changes to a little hand, and all you need to do is just click and drag this thick grey line to whichever column you want to be frozen. So if we do the bottom one here, click and drag it down, and you can see there's now a thick grey line here on row 1, at the bottom of row 1. So when you scroll down, you can see that the column headers here are now frozen in place. And this one that was over here, we've clicked and dragged this over to the to between column A and B. And now when you scroll over to the right, you can see that column A is now frozen in place. And to remove them, all you need to do is just click and drag them back up to the top again, and click this one here, drag it back over to the left. And that's it, job done. So tip 2 is to format cells correctly. So if you've got cells containing dates, then format them to be a date. So if you take this column here, highlight the column first, and then click on the More Formats button, which is this 1, 2, 3 button here in the toolbar. Click on there and choose Date to quickly format it as a date. So you can see here, all of this is now changed to date. If you want it to be displayed in a slightly different way, then click back on the More Formats button, scroll down until you get to Custom Date and Time. Click on there and then just choose whichever format you prefer. So if we say this one here, click Apply, and you can see now the date format has changed again. Again, if you have cells that are monetary amounts, then you can format them to show as currency. So say for example, we want this unit price. Highlight the cell, go back to More Formats, and you have one called Currency here. You can click that to quickly format it as the chosen currency. If you want it to be a different currency to what's shown as default, then again, highlight the cell, go to More Formats, this 1, 2, 3 button, scroll down to Custom Currency, and then you can choose whichever currency you want it to be, you want to apply. And once you're happy, click Apply, and it's done. Once the cells are formatted correctly, it just makes the data a bit easier to look at. So moving on to tip number 3, and you can see from this data that it would look so much better if it was in a table. Now unfortunately Google Sheets doesn't have the option of tables, but you can alternate the row colours, which makes it easier to look at. So to do that, click anywhere within the data set, click on Format, and go to Alternating Colours. This opens up the pane on the right hand side of the screen here, and you can see it's automatically added in the range of the data to be included here. And you just go down and choose whether your data has a header, which this one has, and a footer, which it hasn't. And then you can click on one of the default styles to change the colours. Or you can specify your own colours by clicking on the header and the colour 1 and the colour 2, and you can just choose your own custom colours here. So I'm just going to go with this one, and then once you're happy with it, just click Done, and job done. If at any time you want to change or remove it, then again click anywhere within the data set, go to Format, Alternating Colours, and you can edit it as you want to. And if you want to delete it, then you just click on Remove Alternating Colours here at the bottom, and it disappears. I'm just going to quickly put it back again because I think it looks easier to look at. So the next tip is to add filters, even if you don't think you'll use them. They're quick and easy to add, and really handy in case you want to filter any data in the future. So to add them, click anywhere within the data set and click on the filter icon in the toolbar here at the top, which is this funnel. Click on there, and it will automatically add filters to the column headers of the whole area. So you can see the filter arrows to the right of each of the column headers. So to apply a filter, click on the arrow to the right of the header that you want to filter. And here you can sort the data alphabetically, or you can sort it by colour. You can also filter the data by colour or by condition. For example, if any cells contain a specific word or number. So if we want to filter it so that just the data for Australia, for example, is shown, then click Clear first, so it deselects all of the information there. Then click on Australia, so it's got a little tick next to it, and click OK. This will now display just the data from Australia. To get all the data back again, click again on the filter to the right, click Select All, so that all the data is now selected, and click OK. And again, all of the data is now displayed. So moving on to tip number 5, and that is to show formulas. So if you're working in a spreadsheet that's been sent to you by someone else, then it's really handy to know if any cells contain formulas. To show formulas really quickly, all you need to do is click on View, Show, and Formulas. And you can see these columns here at the end. Now you can see what the formulas are. To hide them again, just do the same thing again. Click View, Show, and then Formulas to get rid of this tick next to it. And now you can see the actual values instead of the formulas. So staying with formulas, this next tip is to use named ranges in your spreadsheets wherever you can, as it makes it a lot easier to read and understand the formulas. So to do that, highlight the range of data that you want to name. So for example, I'm going to give the total profit column here. I'm going to highlight all of the data here, and I want to give this a name. So to give this column a named range, I highlight the actual data I want to be named, click on Data, go down to Named Ranges, and this will open up the Named Ranges pane over on the right hand side. So you can see here it's put in the range of data that I've highlighted already, and it's given it the name Named Range 1. So I want to change this, and I want to call it Total Profit. So if I now click Done, and you can see this is where the new named ranges are listed, and if you want to edit it at any time, you just click into the pen and you can make the changes as necessary. And then once you're happy with everything and it's finished, you can just click this cross here in the top right corner to get rid of that pane. So now I want to include a formula at the end of this column here to say that I want to sum the total profit. So I can do equals sum and put in total profit. So you can start typing in total profit, the name comes up here, and you just click on there and put in the end parenthesis, and you can see now this is the total. And if you look in the formula bar here, equals sum total profit. Now I've used a basic example here, but imagine if you're working with a lot more spreadsheets with loads more data, which contain lots of formulas referencing different parts of that data. It would make the formulas so much easier to read if they included named ranges like this rather than the actual range address itself. So moving on to tip number 7, and that's if there's any data that's cut off and not visible, then you could click and drag. Like you can see here, some of these are cut off and you can't read the whole word. Now you could click and drag to try and resize the column to try and make it fit the text that's in there. But an even quicker way of doing that is to place your mouse between the 2 column headers. So I want it between column C and column D here. And you can see when I hover the mouse in between the 2, it changes to like a 2-headed arrow, or 2 arrowheads, should I say. And all you need to do is just double click quickly on there, and it will resize the column to auto fit the longest word in that column. So if we do between columns B and C here, double click and it auto fits to the longest word, which would be this one here. Now if you want all of the columns resized at the same time, click in the top left corner here so that all the columns and rows are highlighted, and just click between any 2 column headers here until you get the 2 arrowheads for the cursor. Double click and it will automatically refit all of the columns. The next tip is to do with grid lines. Now I'm just going to scroll over to here. So this is what I mean here, these grid lines here. I always find that spreadsheets look less complicated when the grid lines are switched off, especially if you're looking at a dashboard or several charts and tables on the same page. So to switch them off, all you need to do is go to View, Show, and Grid Lines. Just untick, and you can see now the grid lines are gone. If you prefer them to be up, then go back to View, Show, and Grid Lines, and they're back again. Tip number 9 is to do with headings. So it goes without saying that the headings need to stand out from the rest of the data. So make them bold, enlarge them, and give them a different color to the rest of the data. Now, if you have the alternating colours switched on, then the header will stand out anyway because you have a coloured block for the header. But if you don't have alternating colours on and you want to make the header stand out a bit more, just highlight the row that the header's on and use this section here where you've got your fonts, your different sizes, bold, italic, text colour. You have the fill colour, so you can fill in the background of the cell as well, just to make it stand out a little bit more. So moving on to my final tip, and that's if you need to print out the sheet, then I would suggest that you look out for a couple of things before actually printing it out. So firstly, go to your print settings, and to do that quickly you can press Ctrl and P, or you can click on the print icon here in the toolbar, or you can also go to File and then go down to Print. So now that we're in the print settings, if I scroll down through these pages, you can see that they're not very well laid out. The first thing I recommend is to check the page size and orientation is correct. So they're listed over on the right hand side here. Now I want to change this to A4 because that's what we work in, and I'm keeping the orientation as landscape as well because that's what I want, that's what it was suited to. Then you can have a play around with your margins if you wanted to make them narrow, wide, or leave them as normal. If you have like a small bit of information on the page that you think could fit into another page, then you can set your custom page breaks here as well. But the next thing I do is go into formatting and decide whether or not you want to show the grid lines. So this is for the grid lines contained in the actual data set itself rather than the whole sheet. So if I just click show grid lines, so you can see what I mean. So if you haven't applied borders to the cells, then it might be a good idea to actually show the grid lines here. I'll just zoom in so you can see the grid lines here. If I just switch them off, so you can see that's what they look like without. You can also change the alignment here as well. So you can decide whether you want the thing centered on the page, and you can choose whether you want what alignment you want for the horizontal and vertical. And next we click into headers and footers, scroll down, and this is where you can choose whether you want the workbook title, the sheet name, date, time, page numbers, etc. to be printed out. If you have any columns and rows frozen, then this will automatically turn on the repeat frozen rows and repeat frozen columns. So if I just come out of this and go back to freeze the column and the row and go back to print, and now if I go back to headers and footers and scroll down, so you can see the repeat frozen rows and repeat frozen columns is now ticked because I've got frozen rows and frozen columns in the actual spreadsheet itself. Just makes it a little bit easier that you can actually see what the data means on each page. So once you're happy with everything, you can go ahead and print it out. Right, I'd love to know which tip you found most helpful, or if you want me to do a separate video showing a specific area in Google Sheets, let me know in the comments below. If you've not already watched the 10 spreadsheet rules video, this is it here. And if you're a small business owner who wants to create a basic sales and expenses sheet, then you might find this video helpful too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.